So if you could say something to his family today, what would that be?
This was not a normal in-law situation. I'd been a part of their family for 27 years. We lived blocks away from each other. There wasn't a day that we didn't see one another or talk to one another. They were an extension of my own family, and I think that's what hurts so much, is because I loved their son since I was 16 years old, and I love them, and they welcomed me into their family, and I would never intentionally hurt anyone in that family, ever.
So being that you were so close to this family, and you know they were like your family, they probably would have helped you out of an abusive situation. Do you think that? Do you believe that?
His mother was very ill, and she lived with us for several months. And she was there one night when he flew into a fit of rage at Molly, my daughter. And he was dragging her across the hardwood floor by her hair.
And this is your daughter?
And Molly kept yelling, "Meemaw, help me, Meemaw." And my mother-in-law was on oxygen and a feeding tube, and she got out from her bedroom, and she came, and my son had the phone and was calling 911. And she stopped him. She stopped Patrick. She stopped Bob from what he was doing. And we got her back to bed, and I went to talk to her, and I said, "I can't do this anymore." She said, "Cheryl, it's a part of marriage. It's not always like this. You have a beautiful life. You have beautiful children. Don't give up."
So part of your stand, was part of it due to the lifestyle that you were living?
No. It had more to do with wanting a family for my children. I didn't want them being divorced and spending the weekends with their dad, and I wanted us to be a family.
But you know that happens. Sometimes that happens.
I
The
know that
families
happens.
have to, divorce, and kids are split up, and they go and visit for the weekends. I think that would have been a better alternative
I agree.
to what we're dealing with today.
Oh,
Would you agree with that?
absolutely.
Looking back on that day, is there anything that you could have done differently that his life would still be here today? Do you think you could have made a different decision, a different choice?
Not that day, no. There was nothing I could have done any differently than I did. Where I made my mistake was that I tried to stay and work it out. If I had left sooner, if I had gone to an attorney sooner, if I had told more people, I beat myself up over that, thinking that I was trying to hold the family together and protect my kids, and now.
But you were coming to a point that the family was gonna break up anyway, right? Because had you already paid this attorney?
No, I went to see him on Wednesday, and it just sounded so overwhelming. He walked me through the whole process of getting the restraining order and serving the papers and going to court, and it just seems still in my mind. I still felt like I could make it work. And that's, I think, and again, until you've been in that situation, you can't understand that mentality. And I wish I'd had someone to talk to. I wish I had reached out. And I don't want all this to be in vain. I don't want my husband's death to be in vain. I want to be able to be able to help other women to not be in the situation that I am right now. I don't know if you saw my packet, but I had a letter from the Women's Crisis Center in my area that wants me to advocate for them and help them. And I owe it to my kids. I owe it to my husband's family to somehow be able to help this from happening to somebody else.
What about his sister? Because he was very close to his sister, right? being that you were in the situation that you were in, I mean, did you not feel like that you could just tell her everything that was going on?
I had told her previously, and then she knew again in May when she didn't believe the story I told her. And she told me I had to get help. And that's when his mom had already been in hospice waiting to die for 20 some odd days. And I said to her, it's not about me right now. I can't do that. It would have devastated his dad. So I can't do that. Until your mom passes and things settle down, then I'll go see somebody, but I can't do it right now.
Okay. Well, let's move on to some other things. You do have a college degree, is that correct?
Yes.
And what have you been doing since you've been incarcerated in terms of program?
I've taken every applicable program there is that applies to me. I've been in grief care. I've been in Al-Anon to try and understand the alcoholism and why he couldn't quit. I've taken survivors of domestic violence. I've taken survivors of rape and sexual assault. I've taken to a prison to the streets class. Very active in the church. I work in industries. I've taken advantage of every program that is here, but without having any type of substance abuse problem, which is, as you probably know, the bulk of where most of the prison programs are. There's nothing else available. I can't even further my education because they don't want me taking classes since I already have a degree and taking the space from someone else.
Okay. What's the status of your children right now? Where do your children live?
My daughter is living with my parents and going to college. My son's in a miserable environment. He's living with my sister-in-law. Who
Is
hates
this the same sister-in-law that you were very good friends with?
Yes. Who now hates me with every fiber of her being and hates my daughter. And my son's forced to live in a situation where he has surrounded by nothing but hatred.
And why does the sister-in-law hate your daughter?
I'm not really sure. I understand. I understand her anger. I understand her need to blame someone. And I want her to direct that to me. But I think it's spilling over to my daughter as well. I think because we are all so close. I don't know why she hates her.
Do your children come and visit?
One or both of them are here every weekend.
Okay. If you were paroled today, what is your parole plan? Where would you live and how would you support yourself?
I'll be living with my parents and my daughter and fighting to get custody back of my son. I already have employment secured.
What's your employment?
I'll be working at B&B Riverboats. I'm not, from what I understand, it would be in the reservations department. I'm not sure exactly. I have an overwhelming amount of support from friends and my church community, and as I said, I just want to get out and work with the Women's Crisis Center and do what I can do.
What county does your parents live in?
Kenton County.
Kenton County.
This happened in Campbell.
Okay. Let's see if Ms. Jones has any questions for you.
Yes, I do. Ms. McCafferty, let's talk about why we're here today. This is not a court proceeding. You are not the victim of this crime. You're a perpetrator of a manslaughter first degree, and the victim was your husband. So the parole board hearing, we look at what you did to get here, your crime, what you've done since you've been here, and what risk you are to the society. That's what I'd like to focus on at this time. For the record, I'd like to read the crime story, since it is your first time seeing the parole board. On June 24, 2007, 8:14 a.m., Fort Thomas police were dispatched to 70 Madonna Place for a shooting. Mr. McCafferty came out of the residence with her hands up and obeying officers' orders. Police officers went inside the residence while one officer stayed outside with Ms. McCafferty. Ms. McCafferty stated that her husband was trying to make her kill herself by forcing a gun in her mouth. She stated that her husband said she should not kill herself and he would kill the kids. Ms. McCafferty told the officer that she shot her husband. 2 McCafferty children came out of the residence. They went to the mother, and the children were crying as they bent down to hug her. The children, Molly and Patrick, were 15 and 11 years old, respectively. Ms. McCafferty said, I'm sorry, he was trying to kill me. Ms. McCafferty was placed in an ambulance. The children were taken to the neighbor's home. Detectives went inside the residence where he observed Mr. Robert McCafferty deceased and lying in the bed. His body was completely covered with a comforter except for his head and part of one of his hands' arms. It appeared that he was lying partially on his right side. Mr. McCafferty had a gunshot wound to the left side of his forehead. The butt of the revolver could be seen, with the rest of the firearm covered by a blue cloth material which was thought to be a sweatshirt. It was lying left of Mr. Robert McCafferty on the left half of the bed. So this is the crime story. This is what happened. Okay. Back up a little bit and point out that you have had no disciplinary violations, which is very good. You're able to follow by the rules here at KCIW. Your criminal history, you had absolutely 0 criminal history aside from this crime. Do you have any mental health diagnosis at this time or at the time?
No.
And your PSI said you were diagnosed with depression or being treated for depression?
I was seeing a psychiatrist at the time, probably about 3 years prior to this, dealing with the depression from the abuse.
Okay. So, you said that you had planned to see a divorce attorney and to get a restraining order, and restraining orders are typically something that's in an emergency situation. You can't people normally don't make an appointment to go get a restraining order. It's an imminent situation where you feel like you are in danger at that time. So,
I had talked to my attorney. I was fearful of how my husband would react to the news of me seeking a divorce, and that's why we talked about the possibility of getting a restraining order.
had you asked for any help? I mean, we talked about this a little bit prior to this point. You were an educated woman. You have a good job. You know the resources out there. Had you asked for help? Had you asked for help from anyone? And did this situation rise to the level of taking a life?
Absolutely not. I mean, not.
I just want to try to understand what your thought process was that day. What was going through your head? You said you didn't want your children to be live in a family of divorce. However, here we sit at KCIW. You're in prison. Their father is deceased. They have neither parent, and they have a lifelong sentence because of an act that you chose to do. What other options did you see for yourself? Regardless of the situation, regardless if it was a bad marriage, difficult family situation, things were escalating, this person was asleep. What other options did you have that morning?
First off, he wasn't asleep. The prosecution was never...
Previously told us that he was asleep.
He was asleep, but
Okay.
as I was backing out of the bed, he woke up and raised off the pillow. He was not asleep at the moment that I shot.
And how close range were you?
Close, maybe that far. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was a moment of panic when he opened his eyes and he looked at me and he raised his head off the pillow. It wasn't, okay, I'm going to shoot him, I'm going to kill him. It was a moment of panic. I need to stop him. It wasn't, it wasn't conscious by any means. Never at any point did I decide, okay, well, I'm not going to get a divorce or I'm not going to leave. I will just shoot him after he has beaten me and shot at me all night long. It was never a decision like that. It wasn't.
So it's a frantic shot that managed to hit him where?
In the head.
And you called your mother as opposed to calling an ambulance
I panicked. I didn't know what to do.
to get help for someone who you just shot in the head.
I panicked.
And how long was it after you called your mother that you decided to call 911?
Seconds, minute at the most. I hung up with her and I immediately called.
Think about the consequences.
When
For
we shot,
a person, just think about the consequences at any point.
I didn't even have a moment to think. All I knew was I was in a situation that I never dreamed that I would be in. You know, I had just taken steps on that Wednesday after the beating in May that I knew it had escalated to a point that I couldn't control it anymore and it wasn't going to get any better. And that's why I went to see the attorney, and when he found out, he snapped.
Okay, and you said that he wanted you to try to make you kill yourself. However, he really cared about his image in the community and what people thought about him, and you don't think that he would have been worried about what people would have thought about his life killing himself?
I can't even begin to try and imagine what he was thinking. He was not at all rational. His eyes, it wasn't even my husband. It wasn't.
Do you have any remorse for what you did, Ms. McCafferty? Any remorse for taking your husband's life?
Every single day. You know, I look at it, not me. It's not about me. It's about what my children have had to endure every single day. It's about what his family has been through. It's about never being able to undo what I've done.
Because I'm just going to be honest with you, when you talked about the programs, it was quite concerning that it seemed like the programs that you talked about were addressing your husband's problems. Why couldn't he quit with the alcoholism? I mean, I want to focus on you in this hearing and what you did.
I tried to take advantage of the programs that were here. You know, with the grief care, with the Al-Anon, with the domestic violence, I tried to take advantage of what was offered to me. There's nothing else that is offered that I could use. That's why I am so involved in the church. I've had to deal a lot with.
And you said you were beat, whipped, shot at. However, reading further in this crime story, you really didn't have. You think you would have bruises, bleeding.
I did.
On this particular night. Reading this crime story, there was no documentation really of.
You're talking about from May or the day of the incident?
I'm talking about the day of the incident.
Yeah.
The day of the incident.
These are from the day of the
Mr. McCafferty was
incident.
taken to the police department. One of Mr. McCafferty's attorney came to the.
Those were taken from the emergency room and after. I was taken to the hospital after.
The officers observed a small red blotch on Ms. McCafferty's right temple and a small area of bruising. There were also 4 or 5 scars. 4 or 5 scars on both of her arms. Officers could not observe any marks on her mouth. Okay. But it wasn't to the point where you.
I was taken to the emergency room
Okay.
and those photos were taken.
Okay.
I'm not here to defend anything that happened.
Well, what I want to ask you is, if you were placed in this situation again, because you are going to get out of prison, whether it's today, whether it's 5, 9 years from now, you will get out. If you were in this situation again, what do you feel that you could do differently if you found yourself in a situation like this?
I would never allow myself to be in this situation again. At the first sign of any type of abuse, be it mental or physical, I would leave.
Well, actually, and what I'm talking about is the decision to shoot someone or not shoot someone.
Again, it wasn't a conscious decision. It was a woman acting to save my life and to save the life of my children. He had already shot at me once. If I did not get control of that gun and get myself and get my children out of that room, I honestly believe I or my children wouldn't be here today.
Did he have a criminal history?
No, he did not.
Any incarcerations or violence on his record?
No, he was only violent to the children and I.
So why do you think you should be granted parole today?
I think the most compelling reason was handed down by my judge. My judge who saw all the evidence, who heard all the testimony, who knew the ins and outs of this case backwards and forwards. You know, because it was a violent crime, I should have not been eligible for parole until 85% of my time was served. But because she was aware of the domestic violence in the situation, she reduced that parole eligibility to 20% because she understood and she knew the facts and she knew the evidence. And, you know, she believed that 20% was enough given all that we had been through. And all I could do with that time is to make sure that I used the time as best as I could and try to heal my children as best as I can from in here, to try to better myself as much as I could, and to just not allow my husband's death to be in vain.
I have no more questions, thank you.
I do want to read something to you. It says 18 years to serve at 20% parole eligibility upon the agreement that the defendant waive her right to appeal any issues that have arisen in the trial. So that's why you were given the 20%.
No, the judge gave the 20% because of domestic violence along the terms that I would not appeal the sentence.
So the judge deemed this as a domestic violence case?
Yes, she did.
Okay, is there anything else you want to say to the board prior to deliberation?
Just that I ask that this not be about me. This isn't a matter of, you know, whether I walk out of here or whether I'm free, because I'll never be free. The burden and the guilt of what I've done. But I think you have to look at now how many other lives are going to continue to be ruined and impacted by this. And I just want a chance to try and be able to get out and help my children heal and to help try and put their lives back together and to try and help other women so this doesn't happen to another family.
Okay, we will take that in consideration if you can step out.
You guys all ready?
Yeah. Ms. McCafferty, we as two. All right. Okay. Ms. McCafferty, we as two parole board members cannot agree today. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it back before the full board. The full board meets Tuesday because I think it's the 17th is Martin Luther King's birthday, and that's a holiday. So it will go back before the full board on the 18th. Okay? At that point, the full board will vote, and then you will know what the decision is. Okay?
Will I know that too?
You will know
Yes.
that day. Yes, you will know that day. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Very much.